Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mompreneurs Unleashed. I'm your host, RaQuita Weathers, and today I have a very, very special guest with me. I have Miss Keisha Reaves of Push Thru Therapy. Hey, Keisha.
Hey, Rakita.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, this past year, and actually even more than a year, you and I have been working on a very special project.
Yes.
And that is the Moms in Focus coffee table book. This process has been long, but first of all, can we just tell everyone where did the idea come from to even just create a book like this?
Good question. So I think it's been like a couple of years that I had this idea of compiling stories of Black mothers together to put it in the book. But I know that visually pictures really kind of emphasize and enhance the storytelling aspect of it all. So, being that you do such incredible work, I had reached out to you to see if you wanted to collaborate on the project.
And I'm so happy that you did. This whole project, I can just say, I think from both of our perspectives, that this has been a labor of love. That's like the best way to put it.
Do you think that when I reached out to you, because I remember, I think I emailed you and I said, I wanted to have a meeting with you to talk to you about an idea that I have. And so we got on the Zoom and I kind of like pitched it to you. Do you think that at that time that you visualized it just as it is, or was it like through the process?
No. First of all, I was like, what is it? What kind of project does she have in mind? Like, and then can I deliver? I knew I could deliver, but it's something different. Some of you may know I do have some publication experience in creating a magazine. So this was kind of like that. So when you brought the idea to me, I'm like, oh, it's just like creating the magazine again, but on a larger scale, just way more pages.
Right.
And I did not think either that it was going to be a 360-page book.
I know.
So,
but we had talked about how like the emphasis was that we wanted it to be high quality.
Absolutely.
And it to be like a capsule that could be passed down for generations for people who purchase it.
Right. And you know, it's funny, I had just probably redecorated our studio, and I'm always shopping for a nice coffee table book to put up for decor because I want my clients to have a really nice, beautiful decorated space. And what makes it more homey than having a very nice coffee table book, you know? And I have purchased a couple of like Black-owned books that make great art centerpieces. And so when you came to me with the idea, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity to actually kind of create something like this myself.
Right.
Would I have thought it looked like this? Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Am I amazed? 100%. I think outside of the photography piece of it, there's a lot that went into storytelling in the book. What was that experience like for you, interviewing 50 mothers?
Well, in my day job as a therapist, hearing people's stories is just a part of what it is that I do in general. So I knew that it was going to be me listening to whatever anyone felt comfortable to share. And I also knew that each story was going to be different. So although we're all Black mothers, within that, there's so much variety and so much different in our cultures, our raising, where we came from, our motherhood stories, our connections with our own mothers are different for everybody. So I knew that it was going to be like a colorful collection of everybody sharing their individual stories. And what I didn't expect was how so many stories were different in the aspect of what they felt comfortable with contributing. So when we went into this, we thought that it was just going to be mothers talking about what it was like to be a mother.
Right.
But so many stories was about the maternal influences in their family and how that was a huge contribution into their own womanhood journeys or their disconnect with their own mothers and how that impacted their decision of how they wanted to be a parent, or their fertility journeys and how it was obstacles into being able to have, their only child and then deciding what they wanted to do with the embryo that was left over. So we went from thinking that it was going to be one way to then talking to grandparents, to mothers, to people with fertility struggles, to people who dealt with loss and miscarriages, as well as those who just basked in the beauty of being a parent, despite the fact, because several mothers
Yeah.
said they never even thought that they wanted to be a mom. And
Mm.
a lot thought that they looked at being a mother and a wife as a chore or a burden. And then we would say, whenever we had the interview, okay, so how did we arrive here? Here we
Yeah.
are. And you are 3 kids in. So how did we get
Uh-huh.
here? But just how the trajectory changed from what their perception was initially to them loving and never wanting to have missed out on the opportunity of being a parent.
Oh my goodness. Girl, that was a mouthful. Like, good though. You know, I'm glad you touched on generational impact because when we started the project, we thought it was just going to be moms, just
Mhm,
moms, right?
mhm.
And we think moms initially around our age, I feel like most of that's new moms. And also, a lot of moms around our age could also have adult children.
Right.
So, like, okay, we're getting young mothers to adult age children mothers. But I didn't think we were going to be interviewing grandmothers.
I know.
And we have there's a whole section in the book just for generations. And when I tell you that part right there, it makes me so excited to see. We have one example where there is this little girl, her mother's, her mother's mother. No, wait, not her mother's mother's, but again, we have generations. So just to see the examples of motherhood being, I don't even want to say, I don't know the word I'm looking for here.
Mhm.
Um, just to see the beauty of it. Honestly, like we have this one portrait with one of my clients, Candace. So
Mhm.
Candace introduced a photo of her grandmother. She had her mother and she had her daughter in the shoot.
Mhm.
The 4 generations in that one photo, it's just so powerful.
Mhm.
And just seeing it, I didn't think that that's what I was going to be capturing when I
Right.
signed up to do this at all.
Right.
I thought it was just going to be, portraits that I kind of already do every day. But this stretched me in a different way, which I wanted something that excites me.
Mhm.
To know me is to know that I'm always doing something, I'm always looking for something exciting.
Yes.
Hence why you may see something new almost every year. But this time, it just has such a different purpose,
Mhm.
a true impact. Like it's touching so many different people. Like it's one thing to work with one client.
Right.
This here is across a completely
Lifespans.
different,
Yeah.
yes. And it's gonna be timeless because this is something that is gonna live in your home, it's gonna live in my home. All these women that are in the book is gonna be in their home. And so seeing our work
Mhm.
shared in a completely different way, it's exciting.
It is
It is.
exciting.
Yeah.
And I think something that's really beautiful about it, because when both of us had our children, I don't know about you, but I was looking at books like What to Expect When You're
Mm-hmm.
Expecting and Nurture by Erica Chahidi, and just trying to learn all this information. And now this book can provide a lot of insight just by listening to so many people's different approaches towards motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Ones who wanted to still be career driven and figuring out how they can be a present parent but not giving up on their dreams, versus those who wanted to just be a stay-at-home mom and focus on their children. And with listening to their different perspectives gives you the idea of, okay, how do I want to approach motherhood? Or listen to Vanya Francis talk about how she wanted to deliver her babies at home, and how when she first had the idea, it seemed kind of radical at that time, but
Yeah.
that was just something that she felt compelled to do, versus other mothers in the book talk about giving birth at a hospital setting. And then we have some who wanted to have a water birth. So
Yeah.
I think that that gives even more impact when it's an instructional book or educational book that's like a textbook, versus when you listen into other people's stories of this is a firsthand experience and what they went through.
You know, I actually read when I was reading through the book, there are more moms than you actually think that have emergency C-sections.
Hmm.
So I'm a mom that had an emergency C-section, and it's more common than you think. I
Yes,
didn't think that it was, but
especially
I
amongst Black women.
exactly. Like
Hmm.
I went into labor thinking I'm gonna go and do this the old-fashioned way, which I did not want to do, which is crazy because I did not want to have that experience.
Hmm.
I was kind of hoping, which is crazy. I was hoping for a C-section. I don't know why I thought it was like easier, but lo and behold, hell no, it was not. I mean, and those that have, let's just say, vaginal birth deliveries, they up and running like, within just a few weeks. And then the C-section recovery, it just took way longer.
Yeah.
And then like that scar never goes away. I love my scars, but it definitely changed my body. It changed how I was seeing myself. It was not, I would say like, this is kind of apart from the book, but I did not feel as happy with my body after having a C-section
Yeah.
because it's common that after you have one, you get this develops called a C cleft or C shelf, right? So when they cut you open, all the excess skin from pregnancy, it just like hangs over. This is probably TMI for y'all listening,
But
but
honest.
it is. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this ever gonna go away? And it took a long time for me to feel like myself again. And I'm pretty sure there are other moms in here that
Yes.
probably shared similar stories, but you go in, you think you're gonna have this one type of birth plan. It's all planned out to the T. You got the bag packed, you have all these things, and then you get in the hospital and then something totally different happens. That's out of your hands. So it's good to hear other moms share their experiences and like, I'm not alone in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Outside of just the project that we were working on, was there a specific story from the book that resonated with you? Or, and I'm not even going to say resonated, but that probably surprised you.
Oh gosh, that's a hard one because there's so many of them that like sat with me.
Yeah.
Even when we were talking about when we came down to the deadlines, there were some that sat with me so much I had to wait to write them because I had to think about how I wanted to write them, which is a whole other thing. So as we were putting it all together and I was thinking about how I wanted to write them, whether it was to be like a Q&A type of thing where like almost how you see in some magazines where like the
Interviewer
journalist will
asked a
send them,
question.
it would be the question and the answer. And I didn't want to do that because I felt like that's not for the reader, it's not as connecting.
Right.
Versus if it's almost done in like a biographical way.
Right.
Where I can offer my insight in the writing while also giving much more space to the person speaking. And I didn't want any of the interviewees to write their own story because sometimes they can take away from what they want to share versus like if they're talking to somebody, they can just put it all out there. We can edit it in the back end.
You're going to overshare.
Right.
Yeah.
So with all of that being said, just listening to them, it was just emotionally and being an empath, it just really, really sat with me. So I can't say there's one, but I will say one of the last ones that I had was Valencia. As we were trying to like get it in to meet the deadline. And I don't personally know Valencia. You had introduced me to her. So I didn't know what to expect. I just kind of walked into it. And I think her amongst all the other moms were the example of the art of pushing through.
Right.
And with pushing through, it's not meant to be thought of as like a grin and bear it, but it is being able to understand that although there's darkness in certain moments, there's light at the end of the tunnel and not to give up on yourself and to kind of like affirm yourself that by getting through these challenging moments, there's going to be a beauty and joy that's welcoming at the end. And when she was just sharing about, emancipating herself as a teenager and raising her sibling and becoming a teenage mother to now being an entrepreneur and such a present parent and not thinking she would have a second child and then, having a second child, years later, and how she was very purposeful of breaking generational curses and how that can be really hard when you are the person that wants to be different or to strive for a different story for yourself in comparison to others that may be in your family. And just in general, of everybody feeling safe enough to share their stories because it's personal. So, all of that.
That was so good. And I actually enjoyed reading her story. And there was a lot of them. that I've read, and oh my goodness, they're all very touching,
Mhm.
especially the way you wrote them. Like they are written very well.
Thank you.
So kudos to you on
Thanks.
that. Um,
Well, your photo shoots also makes
thank
them leap
you.
off the pages. Which ones were your favorite?
Oh, you know what? This is actually one of the first times that I have really pushed like black and white
Mm.
photos. And because normally most things I do is vibrant, it's in color, which is awesome. Because I like my things when you see it, it really does jump off the page.
Mhm.
But for this project, I know when we started out, we were coming up with themes.
Mhm.
And so we had 3 different themes that our moms could choose from. So they could do black and white, they could do monochrome, so we call that live in color, or they could do glam,
Mhm.
which I love glam. I do glam for most of my maternity shoots. But with this project, I actually touched black and white in a completely different way than I had before, because most likely I wasn't going to give a black and white portrait.
Right.
And one of my favorite ones we actually put on the back of the book
Oh yeah, Lisa.
of Lisa with her children. And it's just like the perfect motherhood photo. It's so good. When you guys see this book, it's a lot of black and white portraits. Actually, this one as well as January. Because
January.
Miss January,
I know.
mm,
I know.
Dr. January, let me be clear. Dr. January, her photos, I was kind of waiting on the mom that was going to like push the
I know, push
limits
the envelope. Yeah, yeah,
just a
yeah.
little bit. And I was like, okay, is everybody going to be safe? Are we going to just keep this nice and
Yes,
polished?
yes.
Miss January came in there. She
And
was like, I
gave.
want to wear just this coat. I
Yeah.
was like, huh? And she's like, I want to do this pose, and I'm gonna just show a little bit of my butt. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And when we took those pictures on the very first shot, it was the
Ugh,
shot. So when you get the shot on the first go round,
yeah.
I was like, January, I don't know what else we could do. And we did her in her black and whites because it's a very dark black. She's wearing all white. The
The
it's
contrast.
such a powerful contrast,
Mhm.
especially in the way it was edited. It's so good.
Mhm.
It's one that's absolutely probably one of my favorites from the book.
Mhm.
There's a lot of good ones, but that one is absolutely
It's stunning.
it's oh
Like I screamed when you
yeah.
sent it to
Oh, and you know
me.
what? Her and then also Chi.
Oh yeah,
Chi
she.
was one of the very first shoots that I had. And she's like, I don't do this often. This isn't me. I really don't know what to do. I don't, you
No.
know.
And then what? Like,
And then
bam.
she ends up being the cover model. And she said, she's like, I don't take photos like this, or I don't do this often or something. And I said, who you lying to? I said, you don't have to lie to me. And then look what she delivers.
Yeah.
Like when you guys see her pictures, oh my gosh.
Stunning.
I was like, I thought I've seen some models before, like, but this is a model. And she
Mhm.
don't even know it.
Mhm.
She don't know it.
I agree.
Yeah. And so, and we were fighting because this image here was great, and there's another one like on her name page in the book, and that's absolutely one of my favorites too. Like
Beautiful.
there are a lot of great portraits in this project, a lot of them,
I agree.
and all of them are my favorites. But I have just some that really just they just stand out so good.
Mhm.
Oh, and they need to be plastered on the wall somewhere because they are just that powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And when we were talking about how with the photo shoot piece, like the storytelling piece can be very cathartic, and storytelling just like throughout the years is something that's passed down, and
Mm-hmm.
especially within Black culture, of just being able to share our stories and to remember them and uphold them. But with photography, when working with moms who don't have time for themselves, or don't do photo shoots, don't wear makeup, like with Quenisha in her
Yes.
photo shoot, and she was our only mom who was pregnant for the whole
Yeah.
book. What
Yeah.
was that like?
Girl, first of all, I like when clients, it's great when they seek out, like, oh, I need a photographer. I need to capture this moment. So I'm glad you brought that question up. There are some moms that, had we not done this project, they probably still wouldn't have done a photo shoot,
Photo
right?
shoot, yeah.
So some of them were shocked to see themselves in this new way because maybe they're so used to the everyday mom look. I don't dress up. I don't do glam. And then for them to be like, I'm going to do the glam session, just dress me up. I don't want to have to worry about anything. And then I say, okay, thank you. And then just like, let me take the reins on this. And them being so vulnerable to come in to enjoy the entire experience.
Mhm.
So from makeup, getting dressed in gowns or whatever those looks were, and then to see their final images, it was just so fulfilling because and I feel this with most of my clients already, but to see these mothers that probably would have never done it before
Yeah.
and to be able to give that to them, like that was so touching and
Mhm.
a really empowering part of this whole process for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Oh,
What do you think or what do you hope this book does on after we've done the release for it and it's launched? I'll give my
yes.
take.
Oh, you go first.
So I hope that this is something that sits in everybody's homes,
Mhm.
whether they are a parent or not a parent, because we all came from somewhere.
Mhm.
And that it's not just a guide for parenthood, but it's also just a guide for resiliency,
Mhm.
and how to just navigate really tough moments because anything that's new that we haven't experienced before can be really challenging. And we're never the same as we were before we had to deal with it. And I think each one of these stories exemplify that. And I also hope that within a time where our stories are given different narratives or our stories aren't given the spaces to be told, that this is something that's a legacy that is passed on and it's a keepsake for the culture, for the world, and for women generally.
Girl, that was so good. For me, I outside of the stories, my contribution to the book is photography, right?
Mhm.
So to see my work in this manner, um, it's going to live much longer than I mean, it's one thing for my clients to have a photo, right?
Mhm.
But this is it's going to go far. I already
Mhm.
know. You and I both know this is a very quality piece of work.
Yes.
And if I'm being honest, what's our end goal with this? End goal is that someone is going to publish this
Yes.
on a national, international scale. Like
Mhm.
that's the end goal. And so
So
my
it could reach
hope,
like hundreds of
yes,
millions of people around the world.
that's my ultimate hope is that it gets much further than what just you and I can do alone.
Mhm.
And even through our audience, like they're going to share it. And I hope everyone that's a part of it in their circle continues to share it. But I want it to be able to reach the millions.
Yeah.
Like you guys should see this piece of art, these stories that are so raw, they're so authentic, and that it just inspires you,
Mhm.
especially for those that are either you're at the beginning of a motherhood journey and you don't really know where to go with things. You can hear the stories of resiliency, like you mentioned, but also knowing like if I had a tough experience, I'm not alone in that
Yes.
either, because there's always someone that probably had it harder than me. Like it's
Right.
never as bad as you think.
Right.
Because some of these stories, to your point, they are it's they're challenging, and you're just like, wow, I can't believe if I know you, but I didn't know that about you.
Right.
From
Or
surface level,
even
you
like
look
when you
like it's
had,
all good, you
yeah, when you
know?
had you put your C-section
Yeah,
photo in the
I
book.
did.
And when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I can imagine, having to have gone through that. And
Yeah.
even how your story is right behind your sister's.
Yep.
And both of y'all had C-sections.
Yes, we did. Both emergency C-sections.
Mhm.
And you know what's funny? Not funny, excuse me. It's interesting how there are a couple of mothers in the book too that also talk about raising kids that have that are neurodiverse. To see you're not the only one going with the challenge of like my kid has autism. There are a couple of moms in the book that address that,
Yeah.
and you think, and I don't say you think, but there are a lot of moms that I've met that they feel kind of alone in that,
Mhm.
and I'm happy that we're touching on it in the book.
Right.
So and just even just transparency. So you're gonna read my sister's story. So my nephew, he has autism, and there's a couple other kids in the book mentioned that, or mothers that they're raising children with autism, and so you think motherhood is already a challenge, but it's different when you have the simple things that we think will work, they're not gonna work
Mhm.
because your kid does not receive whether it's you telling them to do something or you kind of got to really wait on them to tell you what they need,
Right.
or they're going to do it when they're ready,
Right.
because when we grew up, there was no gentle
There was no
parenting. There was
option.
no, and I
It
wonder,
is
and
what it is.
yeah, it was like, I felt like there were probably less diagnosing back then.
Yes.
I probably said that all wrong, but, or misdiagnosis
Yes.
back then, because we feel like that's a topic that's, not every, but so many more kids today have autism, for example. And I just wonder, I bet there are plenty of us
Oh,
that
for
had
sure.
some things going on, but it was overlooked.
Yes.
And like, oh, they're just, they don't listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm happy we're touching on that in the book. And there's so many different things in here. So you guys, there will be so much to soak in from reading this book, so much visually to take in, just seeing these mothers in such a beautiful form. Are there any final words that you want to mention about the book?
I will say, so I am a coffee table book collector.
Same, same.
That also like gave me the idea. It's like, oh, well, this would be something that I haven't seen.
Yep.
And I love photography.
Yes.
And that was the reason why I wanted to connect with you. You know, I love Gordon Parks. I love Tyler Mitchell. And I think that you do such an exceptional job with being able to pique the interest of someone who's looking at the photo, of like wanting to know more about this person, like January's photo.
Yes.
You know, like how her photo may be completely different than what she looks like day to day. And if someone, sees her in a work setting compared to how she may be on the weekend or after hours, and what's inside of her and her confidence, and this is her 3 kids later. And I love that about photography, is it causes you to kind of pause and really like view all the aspects of what if and what is, and you executed it very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I receive all of that. So good. I want to thank you again, Keisha, for being a part of our podcast today. For everyone that is watching or listening, you can get your own copy of our coffee table book at momsinfocusproject.com. And if you are in the Atlanta area, we would love to see you guys at our book launch coming up on March the 28th. And if you're hearing this after it's aired, no worries. Just still go to that website and get your own copy. All right? You guys tune in later this season. We're going to be featuring more mothers from the Moms in Focus Project. And you'll get to learn more about their stories, about their businesses, and just how this project has transformed them. So until next time, see you guys later.